Hello and welcome to webinar 2 in this exciting series designed for English teachers and administrators interested in the business side of language education. My name is Anne Crutchfield, and I am an American living in Los Angeles, California, and I own a small business called LA English Tutor, which I will tell you much more about throughout this presentation. While I am sharing a few opening comments, I would love to hear about your current status and how you are doing. Which of these images do you identify with most? If you're like me, you are drinking coffee to wake up. It is 6 o'clock in the morning here in Los Angeles, so I'm getting my caffeine fix now. So I should be writing number 1 in the chat box or in the comments, but maybe you're number 2 if you're taking notes like a good learner, if you're a natural born overachiever, or just extra motivated by the topic of marketing and recruiting, then write a 2. Are you multitasking like number 3? If you're a busy parent trying to juggle all of the things while participating in this webinar, then type a 3. And if you're cooking dinner right now, then tell us what you're preparing, because I think everybody loves to hear about food. Or are you number 4? Hey, it's evening time in Russia. If you are unwinding after a long day of teaching, then cheers, na zdrowie. We all know that grading homework assignments and wine are an excellent pairing. If you are in the Zoom room or following live on one of the other channels, then write your number along with a little comment or a note if you have one. You can share something about yourself, something brief, a little introduction if you would like to. This presentation is part 2 of 6 in a special series for Russian educators who want to venture out into the open market and get involved in entrepreneurship in English language teaching. Today's meeting will follow a presentation style format. So I'll do all of the talking by myself, but 2 weeks from now, on December 21st, we'll meet for a second discussion style meeting, a consultation session designed for you to join and unmute and speak up. Anything that you add or comment during today's talk will be collected and addressed in that consultation session. There are also Padlet links coming up that we'll use as a place where you can ask questions, and also I'll be sharing some extra resources there. So I hope that you will take advantage of these opportunities to participate. You may be here because you want to start taking on private tutoring students, or maybe you want to open a school, maybe you just want to sell your own curriculum, or possibly earn money as a social influencer. Each month that you attend this series will equip you with more and more tools and ideas. Last month's talk by Melanie Johnson is available to rewatch on YouTube if you missed that. And you can register for the upcoming webinars using the link that is going to be posted. The next one is on February 8th, and it's all about finances. So thank you, Viola, for posting that information. It is such a privilege to talk with you all today about marketing and recruiting. And I have to admit that if you had told me 3 years ago, when I was just beginning my business, that I'd be here today sharing my knowledge on these topics, I wouldn't have believed it, because I don't have formal training or certifications in this area. I studied linguistics and education, but I think you already know that this webinar series is all about bringing you real life teacher perspectives. So like all of the presenters in this series, my background is in English language teaching and program administration. I worked as a classroom ESL teacher for 15 years, and a study abroad coordinator for 2 years before I started my business. So for more than a decade, my day-to-day work as an educator looked something like this. Here are some treasured memories from my traditional teaching days in Hawaii and California. Currently, however, my classroom and my life as a teacher looks more like this. All of my files are electronic, all of my lessons are virtual, and I often feel more like a web developer or a graphic artist or even a movie director than I feel like I'm an English instructor anymore. In any case, I am here to give you a firsthand account of how I am actively transforming my teaching career. And I've been doing it mostly using digital marketing for social media. So that will be a big focus of what I've prepared for you today. If you're taking notes, then you can see an overview of this webinar. I'm going to begin with a bird's eye view of the present landscape of marketing in a highly digital and social world. And I'll advise you to embrace a digital marketing strategy that includes a social media component. Then I'll get into the top tools and tactics that I have used or seen other teachers like us use with success. I'll encourage you to adopt and adapt the available tools flexibly in your own way in order to create a unique community for yourself. And then in the last part of this hour, I'll show you several examples of how teachers all over the world are pioneering these new methodologies. I hope to give you some new inspiration for your career in the private sector outside of a formal institution or a school. Never before have teachers had this possibility to completely manufacture their own institutions of learning. It's a very exciting time to be an educator. And in large part, we have, of course, technology to thank for this new era of teacher autonomy and teacher professionalism. Everything in education is shifting to the virtual realm, as you know, and my business fits this trend very closely. I started my business pre-COVID in 2019. And for 6 months, I met in person with students in a conference room located in the lobby of my apartment. One of my first purchases to my business account was a printer because I needed to make hard copies of all of the materials that I was using with my students. I would bring my whiteboard and my speaker to our lessons, and I would teach more or less the same way that I had always taught in physical classrooms. My early marketing materials included this glossy printed flyer with terrible tabs. I posted these at coffee shops around Los Angeles. And you can kind of infer or deduce from my business name, LA English Tutor, how I was imagining prospective clients would be searching locally for tutoring centers that were situated near them geographically. I envisioned people Googling for English teachers in LA. Fast forwarding through the coronavirus pandemic, my business model now is very different. It's much more global than local. I teach entirely online using Zoom and e-learning tools. I no longer post flyers, and instead I spend about 2 or 3 hours each day creating content for social media, which is my primary marketing strategy. While private one-on-one tutoring is still my largest revenue source, my future sights are set on developing scalable passive income streams. Therefore, the current emphasis of my business model is on developing, marketing, and selling self-paced digital courses and e-curriculum that English learners can click on and purchase from any mobile or desktop device around the world. So my first advice is to embrace a digital marketing strategy that includes some kind of social media presence. Perhaps this is very obvious to you already, but I wasn't doing this in the beginning and I needed to hear this. And now that I've crossed over to the other side, I really just wish I had started digitizing and branding my work sooner. This proliferation of technology has made it possible so that you can do 100% of your marketing work on your own. You don't need to outsource a lot these days. You have the tools already at your fingertips. But of course, that's easier said than done. I was really intimidated by the concept of marketing in the beginning. I did my best to self-educate with my own internet research, and I did discover a lot on my own, but I was still pretty lost. And within a few months of starting my business, I consulted with an acquaintance of mine who ran a public relations firm. And at that time, she almost convinced me that in order to get off the ground, I would need to hire a marketing professional to do it for me. But it came with a price tag that was well beyond my budget. So I experienced something like what's going on in this meme. My plan didn't match my budget because outsourcing to professionals is very costly. In my case, doing my own marketing was more or less a necessity. And it was also my choice to take on the bulk of the marketing work myself because I personally wanted to kind of get my hands dirty and learn how to do a lot of it myself. However, I realized that you may have a different mindset about marketing. You may be in a different position with other strategies available to you. So, what is your mindset or your mentality when it comes to marketing in general? If you're like me, then you love a DIY, do it yourself challenge. I am happy to be hammering away at this stuff, and I want to be the head engineer of my own marketing vision. So type letter A if you are taking a ground up approach and really dedicating a lot of your own time to constructing your marketing strategy. Of course, this isn't the only way. You could have a marketing mindset more like B. Rather than doing everything yourself, you can spend your time and your resources acquiring funding to use towards marketing. This can be done through grant writing, crowdfunding, getting sponsors, or even partnering with investors. The global English language learning market is expected to reach $70 billion by 2029. So it's feasible that you could attract people interested in investment opportunities to give you financial backing toward an app or a website or some other kind of profitable resource. Anyway, type B if your approach is to raise capital for your marketing costs. If you have all the attitude, then type C. Maybe you have a big advertising budget already. You might be part of an organization that has access to funding, then congratulations. You could already be really well positioned to spend money on ads and media publicity. So type C if your mindset towards marketing is something like, let's go shopping. If you are out there, we envy you. And if you're completely lost and have no idea what your marketing mindset is, then just type D and don't worry. I was very lost when I first started too, but then I realized that I had a lot of the skills already. And this is actually the theme of my talk today. If you take away anything, then I hope it's this. You already have what it takes to own and operate a thriving business because there are so many transferable skills between the world of marketing and recruiting and the world of teaching and admin. The terminology on the left side of this graphic may look totally unfamiliar or it may be intimidating, but notice all of the parallels and the overlaps with the activities that are involved in managing a classroom or a language program. We will break these down now as we move into the second part of this webinar, looking at specific strategies for attracting consumers. Let's jump into the first strategy, which is doing market research. And this is really similar to how a teacher might go about a needs analysis in order to get to know more about their students on the first day of a new class or a new term, right? In the classroom, we want to find out who we're teaching. So we might design a survey or an icebreaker activity to gather data on who our students are as learners and as people, because this information guides our decisions about instruction and curriculum, as you know. Well, when you take off your teacher hat and you put on your marketer hat, you can ask these same essential questions. Who are my customers? What do they need and want? In other words, what are they willing to pay for? And there are a couple of ways to figure this out. First, by doing some research, and then by creating buyer personas. There are a lot of places that you can look for clues about the people who make up the ELT buyer market. All of these could reveal trends about the kind of language support that's most often needed by people learning English in your context. Large-scale data even can be useful to explore. And in fact, my very first private student came about as a result of my early analysis of data from a report about international students in the United States. This is a screenshot of my actual notes from 2019. I mentioned before that my first business model was based entirely around in-person tutoring with local student clients. So back then, I was interested in figuring out about the California ESL population. And this report from a source called Open Doors gave me some really important clues that led me to my first client. So from these stats, I knew that the number of international college students coming to America was trending upward. And these figures confirmed that students from China made up the largest group. So I made note of that. And finally, this data showed me that I was in a prime location in California, the state with the most international students. And I live right next to the 2 university campuses hosting the majority of foreign students in the country. So I inferred that since these students were paying really high out-of-state tuition fees, the stakes for them to do well and graduate must have been relatively high. So I thought that they were more likely to have an incentive to spend money on tutoring. And I started thinking about how to reach these international students who were mostly from China. And I did 2 things that were free and easy. I opened an account on the most popular Chinese social messaging app, and I interacted on the Chinese Student Association accounts from the 2 universities, their campus Chinese clubs. I liked and commented and posted announcements about my services, and I ended up getting my first one-on-one student this way. But not only that, she became a long-term client of mine. We worked together for 2 years throughout her entire graduate program, which ended up adding about $12,000 to my business account. This just happens to be the way that I attracted my first client, but I'm sharing it to illustrate how getting an understanding of the market trends can be worthwhile. Doing some investigative research about the market can definitely lead to new directions. And once you have an idea of who your prospective students are, you can start to create customer profiles or buyer personas, to use some more marketing lingo. I was recently traveling in Paris, France, and I went to a perfume museum, and my tour guide talked a lot about perfume marketing and how perfume companies envision different imaginary women and men first before they manufacture a new scent to fit that persona. They don't develop a nice scent and then figure out who to sell it to. It's the other way around. They tune into the concrete image of a person first, like a writer might do when they create a character. So the product, the perfume, is an outcome of imagining what that person would want to buy for themselves. And thinking about prospective student clients like this is definitely more of a conceptual and an abstract exercise, but ultimately it's an exercise in empathy. Thinking empathetically gives your marketing mind a deeper look into who your students are, what they need, what they want, and what they're willing to pay for, to review our questions from earlier. If you've never done something like this, then try thinking like a perfume marketer. Take some time, maybe later today, to create one or more buyer personas based on your market research and existing knowledge about what language learners tend to require and desire in your experience. These are the profiles that I have developed over time. They help me respond to requests and tailor my products and my services and my marketing messages. When I first began, I was concentrating almost exclusively on messaging and advertising for college and university level students, simply because this was the consumer group that I knew best after working with them for so many years. But then over time, as I expanded and the business grew a little bit, I gained more exposure and different types of English learning consumers emerged. They found me. These personas tend to require different skill sets. For example, I never expected to work with as many aspiring actors and models as I am now. I really didn't have this niche in mind specifically when I started advertising my services. But of course, it makes sense that Los Angeles would attract people from all language backgrounds who want to pursue Hollywood careers. These are students who need support with things like American English, pronunciation, and reading scripts for television and movies. And here's a quick visual of how making this buyer persona turned into increased revenue in my case. And it's the story of the second student that I ever attracted to my business. She's a young woman with a successful career already as a fashion model in Israel. And she needs English for auditions and interviews and other things. She found me through my Google business page, and we started working together in early 2020. I realized that I could reach more English learners like her and let them know that I had the resources and the expertise to help them with similar goals. So I created a new buyer persona and developed more curriculum to use with this type of learner. These steps then led me to connect with my student's agent who wanted to use company funds to pay for English tutoring for several other models. So now I actively meet with 6 clients just from this one source. And in addition, I'm collaborating with some of them on making a self-paced e-course to reach even more international models and actors. And I'm optimistic that this resource will eventually generate passive income in the future, which, as I told you, is my long-term business goal. So creating buyer personas can help you speak directly to real people's needs and then design better products to attract more like them. Okay, this is a good place to pause briefly for some chat box participation on your part. I would like to invite you now to type something. What are the buyer personas that you have worked with or plan to reach? You can also write any questions that have come up so far, and I will collect them and respond to them during the consultation session. So while you're writing a note about the buyer personas that you've worked with or plan to reach, I'm going to turn to the next tool that we're going to add to our toolboxes, add to our repertoires. As teachers, we are used to developing high quality curriculum and resources for our classes, so we can remind ourselves first of the practical things that people usually value in classroom learning contexts. You guys know that students want clear instruction and user-friendly curriculum. They want to get some tangible information. They want to fill their heads with a grammar rule or a new vocabulary or some kind of corrective feedback. This is the transactional level of selling English. People pay money to receive some practical learning experience in return. This is a necessary part of any sales and marketing strategy, and it could be the end of the exchange. However, just like a skilled educator, good marketers will incorporate an emotional experience into the transaction or interaction. We all know from educational research on affect that students want to feel a certain way in class. They want to trust their teachers. They want to feel like they belong. They want to feel safe and included. And many might just want to make friends. These are the kind of emotional experiences that can happen as a byproduct of good teaching. And a consumer wants to get these same emotional responses when they encounter your marketing content. Now, the research on marketing psychology shows that one type of emotional experience is particularly important, and that is the feeling of surprise. When you get something that you didn't expect, like a service upgrade. This is really powerful. Think about when you go to the ice cream shop and are given free spoonfuls to sample, or when a store employee walks you to the item you're trying to find instead of just telling you what aisle to go look for it on. The element of surprise and the feeling of getting something on top of what you thought you were going to get can be very useful to you as a marketer. So how can an English-based business incorporate all three of these into a marketing strategy? In fact, I do this almost every time that I reply to an inquiry, which can happen like 10 or 20 times in a day, like in this example that I got just yesterday. When I first started, I would try to hard sell this person a tutoring trial lesson. Basically, I'd send a flat written reply with details about booking and payment for my lessons, just a transactional exchange of information. But now that I'm a little more business savvy, I handle inquiries differently. I will often record a voice message, and I'll send a link usually to the free download section of my shop, where anyone can download some free workbooks and take some free quizzes, and they can even sign up for a free group class that I host once a month. Viola is going to put that link in the chat box now for you too. Offering free resources like these is just my small way of providing a practical transaction, an emotional experience, and a feeling of surprise. This creates connection that starts a relationship and increases the likelihood that that person will become a permanent member of my community who I can later target for a sale. So I try to make the most out of these transactions so that they become more beneficial to my business by maximizing the practicality, the emotional connection, and the wow factor. By offering up a collection of free English resources, this one link does a lot of marketing work for me. First, it creates engagement because people spend time on my page looking, reading captions, and browsing automated suggestions. All of this helps improve my algorithm and raises my visibility, which increases the traffic to my pages and moves me ever so slightly up in the search engine rankings. To download these free files, the user has to enter an email address, which I collect and use for other marketing campaigns. And of course, the user also benefits from this symbiotic exchange because they get a high value experience. They've gotten a practical transaction, you've made them feel special, and it was probably unexpected a little bit. So they're happy. Did you feel a little bit surprised? Did you have a small emotional response in your body when I gave you the link to free stuff? I've been told that marketers aim for goosebumps, goosebumps, sometimes called chicken skin. Apparently, that's like a slam dunk for marketers. If my link didn't give you goosebumps, it's totally okay. But if you felt happy, then I've possibly demonstrated my point. The key to this working is that it has to be done consistently. You can't just pick and choose when to upgrade customer experiences. Instead, they have to be more or less the norm. When you consistently create high value experiences that are useful and personal and surprise inducing, then it feels authentic. Therefore, I suggest that you create your own values checklist. It could be something very informal, but it will help you to stay on track in showcasing the value of your products, your services, your school, your brand. This list includes the qualities that I aim for when I'm creating content. From my experience, English learners want concise information to improve their skills. They don't want to be bored while they're learning. They want to look at images and videos that are fresh and trendy. They really like to be able to achieve a goal or fulfill some kind of call to action. And no one likes to spend time searching around for things and troubleshooting. So it has to be accessible. Note that these guidelines for creating high value experience, or this checklist, can apply to the content that you want to sell for profit and the content that you want to give away for free for marketing purposes. Since the values that you bring with you as part of your marketing mindset are so important and so individual, I'm going to throw the ball back to you all again and ask you to please write in the comments, in the chat box, or on the Padlet once more. Based on everything that you already know about the English learners who will become your customers, what values will you communicate to them? Yours could be the same, similar, or totally different from the adjectives on my checklist. Come up with your own and write any other questions that you have so far, because this will make for a lively discussion during our follow-up consultation where we have time to talk together more in depth about values. I'll give you a moment to type something. And while you're doing that, I'd love to introduce you to some key considerations for using social media tools. I think we all recognize that one of the main objectives of social media is to get followers. I have observed a positive correlation between the number of followers that I have and the number of private students I work with. This is the most direct and obvious impact, and probably what you'll notice first if you go in this direction. As your followership grows, so will your tutoring clientele. Beyond that, clients can do marketing work for you. One way is by asking them to write a review or to take a screenshot during your lesson with actual learning materials and like messy notes in it. These kinds of social media testimonies can be like marketing gold. And students often turn into recruiters for you. One story that I have started with a mother in California who was following me on social media before she reached out and asked me to work with her elementary school aged daughter. I started tutoring her in reading and writing skills 2 years ago. And since then, her parents have recommended me to several of other of the families that they know. So now I meet with 5 elementary school aged children who are all connected to each other and part of the same network of friends. This story is a pretty classic tale of how followers lead to clients who can become your word of mouth recruiters and your reviewers to increase revenue with no marketing costs. But there are even more advantages to having a large number of followers. When I reached 10,000 followers, I started getting offers for paid promotions. They mostly come from edtech apps, software developers, and sometimes non-education related brands that want to pay you to recommend them and shout them out in your content. I've noticed that as my follower count grows, new layers of paid promotions are kind of unlocking. Even just last night, I opened up an app and it notified me that I'm now eligible for advanced payment bonuses, $20 a video. So that was a total surprise and just an example of how the promotional opportunities have been scaling up. Another example that I have now is the ability to use affiliate links. That means that I have a page on a large book retailer with a curated collection of my favorite ESL textbooks. And I can share this special affiliate link with students and followers. And if they click on a textbook, if they add it to their cart, or ideally, if they purchase something that I'm recommending in my collection, then I get a small percentage of the sale. And there are also apps with creator marketplaces where you can browse available projects like the ones that you can see scrolling here. The projects come with the descriptions of the kinds of videos or promotional content they want you to create. You can apply for these and get paid between $100 and $2,000 from what I've seen. Most brands are looking for promoters that are not really related to education, but here's an example of a paid promotion that I am going to try for a teeth whitening product. This is my plan. I'll make a video that teaches vocabulary related to teeth, the mouth, and dental terms. This is just a small scale project. It pays around $100. So I'm going to use it as an experiment, and this will be my homework. I'll report back to you a progress update at the consultation session. I'll let you know what happens. There are more potential secondary benefits that come from paid partnerships too. And these opportunities, sometimes you really can't anticipate them yet. This webinar is a good example for me. I probably wouldn't be here now if not for my social following. I mean, first off, I wouldn't have the expertise. I wouldn't know about any of this, but also numbers talk. Having a high follower count increases your legitimacy and builds trust. You'll notice that the more followers you have, the faster they multiply. When people see that others value your content, they believe in your value and they want to join your community. which leads me to this big question about social media that does not have a singular cut and dry answer. I reached out to several other online teachers to ask them for input on how they built their followings. And these are the ideas that I heard over and over again. First, be creative. There's no correct way to make videos and posts. There's so much room for diversity in this creative space. I like to remind myself that I'm a language artist and now a digital artist too. So when I make something that helps another person or just causes them to smile, then I'm proud of my art. Your social media content will leave your digital footprint and also your professional legacy in a sense. So be yourself and be creative with your brand. Just a quick side note about branding. Branding did not come naturally to me at first. It might look as if I'm very comfortable doing all of this, but I did not start out with a lot of artistic confidence. Everything changed for me when I consulted with a professional graphic designer who helped me choose a color palette and 3 fonts. And she also redesigned my logo. When that happened, I suddenly had clear creative parameters to work within. So now I design almost entirely within this branding framework. I feel like I can design anything, and as long as I use these colors and these fonts, it will somehow be cohesive and on brand. So if you feel stuck creatively, perhaps a branding makeover will help you too. And keep in mind that it's natural to evolve over time as a brand and a business. It's a natural part of life, right? I see companies changing their branding and their logos all the time. And mine has also had a few different iterations. I settled on the red pen concept for marketing reasons. To me, it symbolizes a teacher's work of grading tests and marking papers. And I thought that I could use it as a prop and a little pop of color in my teaching videos. So maybe you want to also think about incorporating a prop or a mascot of some kind into your marketing strategy. Like I said, I struggled with the visual artistry side of marketing for a while, but it came with time, and I'm certain that yours will too if you tap into your unique style, your eye, your special touch. Okay, I'm not going to spend as much time on the other variables in this formula, but the second key to getting followers is to be consistent. Post every day or almost every day. While no one knows the mysterious secrets of the ever-changing algorithms out there, it is widely agreed that they favor and reward consistent posting. And also remember that you have to be consistent in your customer service, like we discussed earlier, when we talked about going a little above and beyond to provoke the right kind of buyer emotions. The extras should be offered consistently and not selectively. Third, collaborate with others. As I've said already, there is space for everyone to do this. There are so many English learners globally. The audience is massive, and the demand for new content is not expected to go anywhere. I've talked about collaborating with brands for paid promotions. Well, there are also collaborator tools that teachers or bloggers are using to co-produce and dual post content. The exposure from this is very beneficial. I've noticed that English learners on social media aren't choosing one teacher. They're accumulating many to add to their daily feed. If you consistently post creative content and collaborate with others frequently, you will get a community of people who want what you offer. They will want to be part of your class, your groups. They will want to learn English from you. There's an invisible tipping point when social media starts working for you instead of you working for social media, if that makes any sense. This is when you can start to segment and funnel your community to the revenue generating resources that you specialize in providing, such as synchronous instruction or e-commerce platforms or subscription content. Okay, I'm going to ask you to participate one last time if you can. What do you think are the biggest opportunities and challenges that come with using social media for English language teaching? We have not spent a lot of time talking about caveats and challenges to digital marketing. So this question makes space for that conversation to happen in the upcoming discussion that we will have. So just a last reminder that everything you share will be gathered and addressed in the consultation session 2 weeks from now. So just keep posting and posing the questions that come up for you while we investigate some examples of how others are creating content. As you can see, the possibilities for what you create are very broad and diverse. You can use different platforms and media. There are different ways to share your creations, like posts or videos or live streams, and any product can be good marketing content as long as it offers the recipient, the viewer or the reader, a high value experience, which you already know all about. Now, I know a lot of people are probably wondering, do I have to show my face? Not everybody wants to be an actor, and there are understandable reasons for wanting to stick to camera off content. I don't think that you need to show your face on camera, no. However, I do encourage everyone to attempt to reduce their camera shyness, because it might not be as bad as you think, and you might actually like it. I know a lot of people have some aversion to being filmed or hearing their own voice, the worst. But this does get easier. It's always awkward at first, but like anything, practice makes progress, and you will feel more comfortable filming yourself eventually. So I don't think you need to reveal your identity, because there are plenty of good examples of English language teaching brands that are independent from any real name or personality. I see a lot of content strategies where the creator is anonymous, like this one by a teacher with 200,000 followers and a very popular Telegram channel. I've been following her and using her graphic organizers for years without ever seeing her face or hearing her voice. And here's another example from an account with 40,000 followers. I don't have the sound turned on, but this creator uses voiceover to explain the grammar rules needed to answer these quiz questions correctly. If you're already fine with being on camera, then you're at a huge advantage, because you can do so much more, including live streaming, one of the most trending and effective formats for language bloggers, because it allows you to broadcast lessons and classes to large audiences, giving everyone a window into your classroom, everyone. I really enjoy going live on social media. I've done it alone to teach all kinds of topics, and sometimes I'll co-host a live with another teacher or bring on an invited guest and make content out of those broadcasts. I recently learned an innovative method from another teacher, Martin. He invited me to be a paid guest teacher in his online academy that he calls Talk and Learn. So I ended up seeing how he set up multiple cameras to capture live stream recordings on different channels. Anyone can watch and listen to the view only class. And then if they want to enter the participation based class on Zoom, they have to pay $3 to drop in, or they have to pay for a subscription based membership that he offers. And he has thousands of people tuning into his content, and his academy is growing. I think live streaming is popular because it's very authentic and it gives consumers the best glimpse into your speech and your communication style. So they can kind of sample what it's like to learn from you. It's like you're giving them that little spoon of ice cream. Also, pictures and edited videos can be overly polished and perfect, but live teaching is unscripted and hides nothing. If this is scary and you want more control over the final product that you put out there into the world, then let's talk about another big trend in content that you definitely need to know about: shorts. There is a clear and strong preference for short videos under 30 seconds. These perform well on social media. As always, there are important exceptions, but as a rule of thumb, aim for shorter clips versus long, drawn-out explanations. If you want to provide an in-depth explanation of a topic, then use the live streaming format or something different. And I'm giving this advice to myself right now because I tend to want to pack a lot of information and visuals into my content. You may have noticed this, and our time is really kind of ticking close to the 1 hour mark. But I have 3 quick tips that I've picked up from other edu-bloggers and content creators who all have large social reaches. Tip 1 is to keep it simple. Don't always reinvent the wheel or try to teach everything. The goal with shorts is to market your services. You can funnel people to richer, more in-depth content in subsequent steps, but you have to grab their attention first. And if your message is too complex, you'll lose the viewer. So keep it simple. Tip number 2, you already know, but it's so important that I wanted to remind you of the power of collaboration. And the short video format lends itself well to this kind of dialoguing back and forth with another speaker. And it can also be a good way to divide the labor, an important consideration since content creation is very time consuming. But I see teachers getting big jumps in their follower counts from doing almost exclusively short video collabs. So start messaging other teachers and working together. Finally, tip number 3 is about using your multilingualism and all of the language skills that you have in your shorts. All of the teachers whose content I've highlighted today are non-native English speakers. I don't think that being a native or a non-native teacher matters in this world of English language blogging. In fact, from what I have observed, multilingualism is rewarded in social media English teaching. So making content in 2 languages is a really great strategy. I didn't want to end this talk without at least attempting to answer the question on most people's minds. How much can be earned from making short videos and other free content alone? A lot of you probably already know Lingua Marina. She's from St. Petersburg, but now she's living in Silicon Valley. And she has really set herself apart. She has a wide diversity of content across so many platforms. She's the English teacher who recently had a billboard in downtown Los Angeles. And I love this because it tells me that English teachers have a place in the influencer economy. Marina reports this number on her website as monthly income from YouTube alone, and she has a lot of revenue sources. I am following her closely to see how she's achieving so much success as a teacher turned entrepreneur. And I'm certainly not the only one trying to replicate some of her monetization methods. So to wrap up, I've only shared a small sample of what is possible in terms of digital and social marketing. And I'm sure that many of you are already creating interesting content. If you are, then please come to the consultation session and tell us all about what has worked for you. And if content creation is new for you, then this is your homework assignment. Take an idea, a strategy, a tool, or an inspiration, anything that you picked up during this webinar, and test it out. Then come to the next Zoom and let us know what happened. Lastly, I want to sincerely thank you for taking the time to be here. And I want to congratulate you because by attending this webinar or by viewing this recording, you have planted the seeds that will sprout and blossom into a flourishing business someday. No matter what stage of the process you find yourself in right now, we all have enough life experience to know that the path you take will not be linear or straightforward or predictable. Business ownership is a winding road, so you might end up doing work that you never expected. If you're like me, this is really exciting. If you water your seeds toward the direction of your business goals, you'll gain relationships that will eventually develop into a community. I've said this word community multiple times in this webinar, so that connection between marketing and community is the final idea that I want to leave you with today. How will you nurture your community? Think about it and come tell me your thoughts in the follow-up consultation in 2 weeks from now. The link is in the chat box, in the caption, and in the comments. Thank you all again, and goodbye.